Turning Red is a landmark film for Pixar, and I say that for many reasons. It's strayed away from several of the Pixar tropes the studio has been known for, and it's also the first film fully directed by a woman. Turning Red is also produced and written by women, and it very much shows that in positive ways. The film doesn't shy away from what it's like to be a teen girl, even if that makes certain people uncomfortable. Like some of the other more recent outings from Pixar and Disney animation, it also showcases non-white characters and diversifies the population within its film. It also pays homage to and reimagines a classic movie monster. My name's Josh Taylor, this is Modern Mouse, and today I want to talk about Pixar's Turning Red, biculturalism, and how Domee Shi and her crew reimagined the classic werewolf story. If you saw Turning Red, which I'm gonna assume that you have if you're watching this video, you've probably noticed some similarities to Disney's Encanto, which focused on generational trauma. While Turning Red isn't as focused on larger family dynamics, it still plays with the idea of generational trauma, especially when it comes to motherly figures and how they treat their children. You can also make similarities to the Disney short film Far From the Tree, which debuted in front of Encanto at theaters. It's a story about a single parent who's trying to overly protect their child from the dangers of the world. Of course, the short Bao is also directed by Domee Shi and follows a Chinese-Canadian lead character, as well as the relationship with their mother. Where Turning Red separates itself from the pack is how it tries to take on the idea of being bicultural or sharing two different cultures. For our lead character Mei Lin, she is both Canadian and Chinese. She's instilled with the traditions and ideals of her Chinese family, while still living in Western culture. She is stuck between Western individualism and traditional collectivism. And listen, I'm not going to pretend that I'm not some kind of white guy sitting here talking to you. I can't speak directly to this idea, nor can I speak to what it means in being a 13-year-old girl or even what it means to be Canadian. But I do understand what it means to grow up. I can talk to the idea that we shift from the cultivated worldview that our parents give us to identifying ourselves with a larger perspective of the world when we step outside of our home. More specifically, that confusing time where our outer bodies, our hearts, and our brains begin to change, and they start to function differently as we seek validation and understanding. Domee Shi and her team do a fantastic job in showcasing Chinese heritage while also being able to relate that to a larger audience. There was a direct choice not to alienate anyone from this film. Animators embraced classic Chinese architecture and also incorporated bits of Japanese anime, but all of those elements still feel approachable to everybody. It sends a message that no matter where you grew up, we all deal with parental relationships and navigating what it means to grow up. We all deal with anxieties and embarrassment and fear. The heart of this film relies on the performances of Rosalie Chang and Sandra Oh, the voice actors who play both Mei and her mother Ming Li. And we can't forget about the animators who designed this film and brought these characters to life. I personally loved the change in animation design, and there were a couple of elements that reminded me of The Mitchells vs. the Machines, as well as many other films from Studio Ghibli. As someone who was a teenager in 2002, I personally found this film nostalgic and laughed at some of the situations that I even found myself in. The jokes in this film veered away from what you would typically find in a Pixar movie, but they did still feel authentic to the studio and to the story. For many people that are relating to this film, it's probably already in their top 10 list, and while I can't say where it ranks in my all-time favorite Pixar films, I did deeply connect with this film. Its messages really did get to me, and like many Pixar films, I shed a few tears. At one point, I actually shouted at my TV at the top of my lungs how amazing I thought this film was, and I'm sure that my neighbors, knowing that I was home alone at the time, thought I was a little bit weird, but each act in this film ended up turning out differently than I actually thought it would. And a key factor for me personally, as somebody who loves horror movies and classic movie monsters, is how this movie told its monster story.
Are you a werewolf?
No, what?
Werewolf folklore and the real belief in werewolves dates back to the Roman Empire, and fictionally, it's become a staple in film. Probably the most famous and beloved of all the werewolf films is 1941's The Wolfman. It was made during the peak of Universal Studios' monster movie boom, and it stars Lon Chaney Jr. as Larry Talbot, a man who becomes a wolf. After being bitten by another werewolf, he's told that he himself will turn into this werewolf on the full moon, and when he does, he will lose control and become a beast looking to kill. The only way to defeat the werewolf is by killing it with silver. 1981's An American Werewolf in London brought better special effects to the lore, yet the story is still pretty similar. This time, it's David Naughton who transforms into the beast, murdering people left and right.
Please let me help you. I love you, David.
There are moments in which we see David coming through the eyes of the wolf, but like 1941's The Wolfman, it's a film that ends in tragedy. But I want to focus on two other werewolf stories here, and ones that reimagined the werewolf story back when they came out. 1985's Teen Wolf and 1991's Beauty and the Beast. Both films don't end in tragedy for the men behind the wolf, and both are more conscious of the monstrous bodies that they occupy. For Beast in Beauty and the Beast, his curse is broken and he's set free from the beastly body that he had. His redemption comes in returning to his human form in a dramatic retelling of a classic fairy tale. Teen Wolf is much closer to Turning Red, and you could probably say that Teen Wolf and Turning Red are nearly identical films, but they do have a difference. I'd likely assume that the crew at Pixar watched Teen Wolf as homework while making this movie. It's a coming-of-age story where Michael J. Fox's Scott, like Mei Lin, is growing up and in school. Like Mei, the werewolf within is passed down from generation to generation, rather than from some kind of bite from a wolf in the woods.
An explanation is probably long overdue.
An explanation? Jesus Christ, Dad, an explanation! Look at me!
Scott becomes a celebrity at school, thanks to embracing the wolf side of him, and eventually he has to make the choice to continue as either his human form or his wolf form. That's the major difference. Turning Red takes those beats from Teen Wolf and reinvents them. Young Mei Lin is caught off guard by her change in form, and she uses it to her advantage and becomes a celebrity at school just like Scott did in Teen Wolf. But at the end of the film, she doesn't have to make the choice to be either just human or just a red panda. She actually chooses to be both. Again, we can talk about generational trauma here and how her mother chooses to cage the red panda, which only makes it more aggressive when it comes out during the third act. But I want to talk about the more personal side to the story and how it chooses to address puberty and our personal relationship with ourselves. The red panda represents Mei's emotions, especially the new ones that she's experiencing as she's growing into a woman.
But any strong emotion will release the panda, and the more you release it, the more difficult the ritual will be.
For her, the choice to keep that side of her gives her the chance to express herself in a healthy way. We see her mother literally bottle her emotions, as do all the women in her family, to maintain traditional values and to center themselves in order to lead their families. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with those traditions, but what I am saying is that the choice was made not to talk to Mei Mei about what those changes would be like and the emotions that she might have in response to it. Because of that, her mother is forced into a reactive response rather than treating this proactively, making this idea of puberty that much more confusing. Regardless, May makes the choice to not bottle her emotions and to become more independent, but that personal choice does not change the love that she has for her family. It simply matures the relationship that she and her mother have. Her human form represents who she was, the child that her mother brought into this world. But the panda represents the choices that she'll make in adulthood that allow her to be free from the restraints of that childhood. That does mean breaking the chain of generational trauma, but it also means that she's free to make personal choices in her life without ever wondering what the rest of the world, especially her family, thinks of her. The werewolf story has always been about emotions and repression. Often we see the wolf as something to fear, something that we should separate ourselves from. So many werewolf stories end in death because our lead character can't control the wolf within. But this film reinvents that idea in saying that controlling the wolf is actually hurtful. This is a similar tale to 2020's Wolf Walkers, which is another film that I absolutely gushed about in a previous video that I'll link in the description below. I think this story is important for young people. Puberty, periods, sexual emotions, and independence are all a major part of who we innately are as humans, and no amount of helicopter parenting can stop those things from existing. Being open about those emotions and changes takes away from the taboo and embarrassing nature of them. Whether you're 5 years old or 65 years old, whatever gender or sexual preference that you have, the one thing that you should take away from this movie is that your emotions make you who you are. Your journey and your changes in life are absolutely valid, even if you've internalized those changes and the closest people to you don't know about it. However, I think all of us should be seeking out or even creating places to freely express our emotions and changes openly. You should be able to express your own story so that people can understand you and learn from it. That's how we all understand and grow together. Telling stories is one of the best ways to really understand what it means to be human. The world is always going to evolve and progress, and one of the best ways to go along with that, one of the best ways to add your own identity to that, is not by repressing any side of you, but by choosing both the human and the wolf. If you enjoyed this video, I would absolutely recommend checking out my video about wolf walkers. You can find that one right here, and you can also check out my entire playlist of Pixar video essays that's also right here. You can check both of those things out. And thank you for watching this video, and hopefully you enjoyed it as well as the film Turning Red. Leave your comments down below on what you thought of the film and also what your favorite werewolf story is. And until next time, my friends, as always, keep moving forward.